So it's Shadow of the Eagle, Battle of Medellin 1809, and I'm still playing it. And frankly, I did not expect to get this or to go this far. It's been a surprisingly pleasant ride so far. There really aren't a lot of major issues. Like, one issue that's just flat out is I still do not know how to handle French horse artillery, and there's a lot of it. So, I mean, all the rules are made for light, medium, and heavy artillery. So I don't know. Is horse artillery light, medium, or heavy? I think I should treat them as light, but I really don't know. I really don't know what was intended. That's one of these flat out, I have no idea how to proceed with that. But it's the Spanish phase. I'm going to start with movement. Real quickly, I like the orders. I like the orders design here. I like the combat by increment, or I should say combat losses by increment, or strength point. Yeah. I need to remember that routed guy there. I want to point out before I get to the Spanish phase here, and I'll probably just jump into Spanish phase off camera and come back when there's something to really comment on. But this is important. After I finish recording the French phase, I don't even know what prompted me, but I was reviewing what was I reviewing? I was reviewing the stacking rules. Is it stacking? Yes, it is stacking. I was reviewing the stacking rules, which actually I think the stacking rules are a little too succinct. By the way, I continue. It's not excessive, but I do continue to find myself jumping over to the Spanish rules and trying, which is not easy, but to go through and kind of try to figure out what the Spanish rules are saying, and making sure that there are not important words, clauses, or sentences that are missing from the English translation. So I wonder about stacking. So I'll talk through the stacking. Number 7. Stacking in Spanish is apilado. There are exceptions. Okay. So it looks, let's see, compare English yeah, you see there is stuff missing. And see, when I see things missing, in the English translation has one sentence, the Spanish has 1, 2, 3. So when there are 2 missing sentences, actually I can't even say that for certain without translating it, there's stuff missing. And there's stuff missing in, obviously, the English not obvious. I want to make it clear. Stuff's missing from the English translation. It's not that there's stuff in the English that doesn't appear to be in the Spanish. It's that not everything seems to be translated from the Spanish. So, but there are 3 exceptions. There's infantry and square. There is units with maneuver orders, which applies to us because Vilat there had his order. I should say Victor successfully changed Vilat's order to maneuver, so that's what matters here. And then there's forest and buildings. Forest and buildings is okay. So the 3 exceptions. Yes, they seem to correspond. Yeah, they seem to correspond from Spanish to English. So, having said that, units with maneuver orders It says 8 strength points and 4 strength points of cavalry. This is per hex. This limit applies only to units who... Okay, yeah, you can mix maneuver and non-maneuver order units. That doesn't matter. If units that have maneuver orders are limited to 8 strength points and 4 strength points of a cavalry, which, by the way, I assume that's in addition, right? 8 strength points and 4 strength points of cavalry for an absolute total of possible 12. By the way, is that the same? It's not exactly the same. This is really frustrating. The English translation, I just said 8 strength points and 4 strength points of cavalry. But the Spanish obviously has, and I'm doing a really quick off the top of my head translation here, maximum limit of 8 points of infantry and 4 points of cavalry. Because I was just wondering here, I was going to include artillery in the English translation. It's not. That's not there. It's 8 points of infantry and 4 points of cavalry, which frankly makes more sense, because otherwise I would have wondered about the whole... Oh, and that even makes a difference. That even makes a difference here, because I specifically separated out this infantry from this artillery, because I thought to myself, I said, I'm putting it back. All right, I'm getting all mixed up. So what happened before is I moved Volat as far as I could with maneuver orders towards the French cavalry formations, towards the front lines. After I was done recording, I saw this and I said, oh, units with maneuver orders have a stacking limit. And then when I saw 8 strength points and 4 strength points of cavalry, I thought, oh, that's 8 strength points for infantry and artillery, because I had 6 strength points of infantry and 6 strength points of artillery, and I had them in the same hex. So what I did is I started separating these out, because I had more than one hex here. I can't remember how many. Maybe I had 3 hexes that were stacked with basically too many units, because they all have maneuver orders. But when I unstacked the infantry from the cavalry, I thought, well, that's weird. Why does, frankly, a little old artillery unit that's even limbered and would be on the road, frankly, why is it... So I'm putting this back, because they all spread out and they pushed each other back. That's what happened there. So I'm putting the artillery back up there. I thought that was weird that I had to unstack there, because it was 12 points altogether. No, it makes more sense. It's 6 points of infantry in the hex, so that's fine, and that there wouldn't be a stacking limit for the artillery. That makes more sense. So when I was all done there, and these are still unstacked. I don't know if I unstacked 1 or 2 hexes, but it wasn't just that lead one. That lead one just started pushing the units back. But what I noticed is, these units in maneuver, with maneuver orders, are spreading out. And I kind of like that. So when I first saw the limit here, I wasn't exactly sure what the point was. Now I see the point. You put your units under maneuver orders, you're basically doing the opposite of concentrating, which makes perfect sense. I like that. So I just wanted to point that out. I made changes there. And now I just noticed that I did not have to unstack the artillery from the infantry there. So that's what happened back there. Okay, now we're going to do the Spanish turn. Spanish movement complete. Obviously, with attack orders, they have to. Again, if they move, they have to end closer to the enemy, and you have to end at least 2 units of each formation with attack orders has to. Basically enter combat if at all possible. So that basically means push forward. I'm still using like 2 lines per division. Just a couple things real quickly in passing. I went ahead and grabbed my own, well, I grabbed charge markers from one of the Lava Tai games so that I can mark my charges, because I still don't. I'm still not comfortable. I have a couple of charges way over there on the right as well. I don't feel comfortable remembering that. With this stack here, of note, I mean, I don't see any. There are no detailed. What do you want to call them? Like procedures, requirements for charging. Oh yeah, I did. Oh, I forgot how I learned that it's not really a good idea for the Spanish to charge. But I'll do these few more charges. I want to see how they turn out. But the point is, there are no detailed requirements or steps at all. You're going to double your strength. You do have to do a morale check, which again I'm assuming is done during the shock combat phase. You cannot have moved more than, I think, 2 movement points. Is it points or hexes? It is hexes. So you cannot have moved more than 2 hexes. They moved 2 hexes up there to make contact. But these guys were already here, and there are no requirements. So I'm going to have them charge. Yes, they are adjacent, but these are 250 meter hexes. So these are 2.5 times larger than a Lava Tai hex, and so there are no rules about, you know, starting a certain distance away, moving a certain number of movement points and or hexes in a straight line, or there's none of that. So they're in the same hex that they were in before, adjacent to the enemy. I'm going to declare a charge because I don't see why I can't. The other thing to note over here is that while these are great little guerrilla markers for guerrilla formation, although this is misleading to me because I think of these as guerrilla fighters, but they're not. This is guerrilla formation marker. Even though these are great little markers, I did away with them. I did away with them for 2 hexes. So this French infantry over here on the far left of the French line, I had it like that with a guerrilla marker like that, showing it's in 2 hexes and split, by the way. So I did away with the marker here. I put it in the center, kind of Lava Tai style. And so now I'm going to figure out how to handle that. Oh, they're charging a guerrilla or skirmish formation. So I'll see how to do that. So we'll do French defensive fire. Let me see if there's anything. I don't think there's anything especially unusual. I will have my first that I remember right here. I advanced the Spanish infantry there to adjacent to the French artillery. So we're going to have kind of a point-blank fire artillery. Yeah. So before I get on to the Spanish shock combat and end the Spanish phase, I want to talk about this something. It happened twice. So this artillery at point-blank range, which, by the way, with 250 meter hexes, point-blank fire isn't defined, and it is not an effect, which makes perfect sense. What's very interesting, by the way, is that all artillery, even though light artillery has a range of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, medium has a range of 5, and heavy has a range of 6, all artillery has this fire pattern. It's so this artillery has a strength of 6. Adjacent, it's full strength, or 6. At 2 hexes away, it's 50% stronger, so this would be 9. And then at 3 or more hexes, it's half strength. So 3, 3, yeah, 3, 3, because I'm treating the French horse artillery as light artillery. So it's 6, 9, 3, 3. I like that a lot. So basically, you want to get in that kind of you want to get in that maximum beaten zone of 2 hexes away. Anyways, they fired. They got a D result, and I had this flipped around. I don't have. If this were a disordered result for the Spanish, I would have it that way. It's not. It's a This is something very odd, but maybe it is a good design idea. I just don't understand the rationale for this, and I'm going to talk through this because I had it happen not once, but twice. Way over here on the Spanish right, the two charging Spanish cavalry, the French infantry in guerrilla formation fired. By the way, I have no way of knowing whether this is right or wrong or what, but it's a 4-strength unit, so it's 2 strength in each hex. I had each hex fire as a 2-strength infantry unit at each separate, so I had 2 fire from here to this target and 2 fire from this hex to this target. I have no idea whether that's right or wrong. I couldn't see anywhere where there was any type of limitation on fire for units in this guerrilla formation. As a matter of fact, the only thing definite that I see is the reverse. So when the Spanish are firing at the French in guerrilla formation, or vice versa, fire against guerrilla formation is -2. In other words, obviously it's less effective because your targets are not masked. So fire against guerrilla formation is mentioned. There is nothing about, problems, limitations, or anything with respect to infantry in guerrilla formation firing. So I had that, and so I had another one of these D results. So let's take a look at this D result. So this is the fire table. Well, let me start with, when I was first going through the game, I got the morale table here, and it clearly says D equals disorganized. Place a D marker. Again, place the D marker. So when I went to the fire table, I thought it was the same thing. I thought that this was self-explanatory. So obviously I thought, well, the D must be the exact same thing. But it's actually not. It's actually not. The rules say that, let me get it just right. I don't know what this is supposed to represent at all. So here's D on the fire table. D equals, first it says only if during defensive fire. That makes sense that that these D results only apply to defensive fire, which is our case, of course. But what do you do if it's not? I'm assuming that if it's not defensive fire, you treat these Ds as the dash or no effect. I'm assuming. Don't know. Then it says a unit is not allowed to attempt shock combat. That's why I have to mark them, because I want to know, like those charging Spanish cavalry, I'm assuming now, well, by the way, it's a huge assumption. Are they now unable to charge or shock? I guess. I guess. This is also, okay, and so there's that. So they cannot even attempt shock combat. So then it says this is also the result. I have no idea how to implement this for sure. This is also the result if a unit takes 2 or more hits, period. What does that mean? Does that mean... Oh, I see. The very next line is 1, 2, 3. Unit takes that number of hits. That's referring specifically to here. So in other words, you have the D result for defensive fire. Also, during defensive fire, if there's a 2, if there's a 2, 3, I guess it's just 2 or 3. All these 2 and 3 hits here are also treated as this special D result, which is not disorganized. So I talked through it. That's how I'm doing it. I still don't know what this is really supposed to represent, but I don't know what it's supposed to represent if it doesn't represent this disorganization. So I don't know. Is it supposed to be demoralization, maybe? Which is why they can't... Oh, I'm sorry. There's supposed to be another piece to this. How did I... Yeah, I'm sorry. I just forgot to get back to it. And there's another interesting thing. It may still fire normally. So this is defensive fire. So in this case, this is a good example here. This is infantry. So I'm placing the D marker on to show that this unit cannot shock combat later. But in the very next phase, when it's Spanish offensive fire, they can fire, and normally, no problem. So maybe it is more like a demoralization. In other words, the unit is not going to move forward anymore. that turn. But again, fires normally. Now, what it does over here is that I guess I'm still treating cavalry as if they don't do fire combat. So I think he's dead in the water. I'm saying that he can't conduct fire combat. When we get to the shock combat, he can't do shock combat, which means he can't possibly finish his charge, which, by the way, you're supposed to do a morale check, and a unit could be routed by failing their morale check as part of the charge. So does he still do that? I don't think. This is totally a judgment call, but I'm thinking they were demoralized before they got to, well, I'll leave it on here, but I think they got demoralized before they had to check the morale. Well, I'm saying demoralized because that's how I'm interpreting it. I shouldn't say that. They were prohibited from conducting shock combat before they had to conduct the morale check for the charge. However, these are all my interpretations. Remember, I said in an earlier video, the rules never say when you actually execute that morale check. I'm just assuming that it's going to be during the shock combat phase when you go to execute the charge and the related shock combat. So I think I just wanted to talk that through. So now I think it is Spanish offensive fire.